I don't know how true this is, but if it is true, I'm mind blown by this right now because I follow politics like a hawk. The domestic side, where we're dealing with in-state issues, as well as geopolitical. And my wife just sent me something that just blew my mind. I wouldn't even come on here and make another video if it wasn't something that I just considered shocking because it's a lot of stuff that, nothing really surprises me anymore, because of knowing how the world works. I'm not really too surprised about anything anymore. But it's a video that's making its rounds that's saying that there is something going on near the Panama Canal. And there's a bunch of ships that are on the outside of the canal. And from what this guy's saying, he's saying Russia, China, India, and Iran have troops that are stationed there right now. And it could be a possible situation where somebody's trying to shut the canal down. That would have monumental consequences as far as war. That canal and the Strait of Hormuz and what you want to call the Middle East, those two canals could definitely cause a world war if someone were to try to shut those things down. And I'm of the belief system that we're not going to have a world war because we're going to get close. I think we're going to get closer than the Cuban Missile Crisis. But I think someone's gonna step in, and that's what Dave was talking about in his report. So I guess there was something interesting. He talked about how we'll get close to war, and of course there's gonna be collateral damage and casualties along the way. So yeah, basically, if a couple people have to die as opposed to a couple million, then I guess you could say that's cause to celebrate in a way. And that's kind of the way you have to look at the situation that we're dealing with. Because one thing I know on the back end is this. 405's ultimate plan was to get us off of the U.S. reserve currency. Get us off of the Federal Reserve note, because that's at the core of, if you want to call, the tentacles that are controlling our country. And the way they're able to do that is by using the Fed, because the Fed money is really nothing. Of course, they've created this system that we operate in because of the Federal Reserve, and that's why people don't realize what of a system we should be in or we could be in without the Federal Reserve, and I can see that. So I see things so much differently because I vision a world without the Fed. Believe it or not, something as simple as removing the Fed would make all of our lives better. All of our lives better. Hell, I would even go as far as to say as it may even quell a lot of race relations, because the Fed is at the heart of all these different policies. They control the media apparatus. So a lot of things that we're seeing, we might not even be seeing. I don't believe anything that the mainstream media says. I haven't believed them for years. I don't believe a lot of George Floyd shit. If you ask me personally, I don't even think he's dead, honestly. There was just a story about a hanging that happened in Arizona out of the blue. A black dude, a brother, is hung, and knowing what I know, knowing that Congress is going to recess, there's some very important trials coming up here pretty soon, along with the midterms. The midterms is not really the big deal. The big deal is all these trials that John Durham has going on behind the scenes. He's just recently asked or released 30 of those 400 indictments or 4,000 indictments that he might have. Regardless of the number, I know he's got them, and I know him, this guy named John Ratcliffe, and this guy named James Weiss, maybe. They're attorneys that are looking into a lot of the shit with Hillary. So before she goes down, expect hell, because she's not even the biggest player. And I think the biggest players know that if they're minions like the Obama, they go down, then they're in trouble. And I think the only player that we're aware of that's kind of up there is probably George Soros. And believe it or not, I think he's a mid-level guy. Believe it or not, I think he's a mid-level guy because of the way I've seen them move back and forth through our country and just assume positions within the government and things like that. It lets me know what the deal is with these people. But back to what I was saying and why I actually came back on for another video. I need someone to do some research on that shit. Because if someone's trying to shut down the Panama Canal, and also know something weird is going on, because when 4-5 was in office, Mike Pompeo, which was, I believe he was Trump's Secretary of Defense. I don't know if it was, yeah, it was Pompeo, because he got rid of Bolton. So with Pompeo going to Taiwan, it was almost like China's not going to do anything because they know Trump's not bullshitting. But now they're telling Nancy Pelosi if she goes to Taiwan, it can have military consequences. And now, ultimately, just know one thing, that there's two different agendas on the bad end where they want the war to happen. And it's for two reasons. The first reason is because they know it will help expedite their ushering us into the digital currency, because once everything's all blown up and shambles and you can't go to banks to get your money, they're going to say, well, guess what? We've been developing this digital currency. So now everyone who goes to this FEMA camp gets what they need to get from us, and they're happy campers. We'll give you the credit line. If you don't want to play ball, then we'll do some things to you where maybe you disappear, and it ain't going to be like it's a big thing, because society is already going to be turned upside down. So what's a few 100,000 people going missing because they are considered dissidents? This is the type of shit that I'm talking about with the war shit, the shit that realistically could possibly happen, right? So, with that being said, man, this is an amazing time to be alive, but it's crazy what's going on right now, and to understand the different chess moves being played. So, with the war, what happens is, I'll tell you how the low and mid-level players benefit from it, and then the higher level guys. The higher level guys benefit from it because they're the ones who want to usher us into the central bank digital currency. And they're sitting down the mandates and the ideas and how they can push us into it. So with the war, they know that controlling the people is going to be easier for the low-level guys that they control, like our politicians and our entertainers and all of those people. So if you wonder how this can happen, it's because you got to follow the money, because all these people know that public image is important, and they don't want to fall on the sword, and that's why it can stay hidden for as long as it can. Because if you're a pedo and you find out that you're in a line of work where 10 other people are, what's going to happen if you speak out? That's what I'm thinking some of these celebrities and entertainers and politicians are thinking. But also, they have it in the back of their mind, the people who can release this information, basically we're at their mercy, because they have Ghislaine Maxwell's book, they have Anthony Weiner's laptop, they have Huma Abedin's information, they have Hillary's homebrew server, they have Anthony Weiner's information, they have Julian Assange's WikiLeaks, which I read through 90% of them, especially after Cuomo told us we couldn't. I was in those motherfuckers like, okay, this is what it is, because I was like, they're probably going to make them disappear. But you could still access them, I'm sure. But wow, like I said, if that is going on, one of the other things that's amazing about it is, if it is really going on, it's amazing because we've heard nothing about it on any of the media here. And it's not like I pay attention to the media like that, but I do a lot of I read a lot of different publications on my phone, because I don't watch TV really. I just do a lot of reading. And I read a bunch of different news articles from different places. I've been doing that shit for probably about 15 years, believe it or not. But like I said, if that shit is happening, like this dude on this video is saying, that is mind-blowing. Because it then makes you wonder what the hell else is going on that they're just not telling us about. Because think about it, they just try to MK Ultra the whole world with this situation. So who's to say that we don't have military already here, which I already know we do. I believe we already do, because I've listened to Kash Patel's Devolution, where a lot of us who've been following this stuff for a long time thought, you know, 46 was going to get apprehended during the inauguration, and we were like, wow, he didn't get in. He didn't. We were sitting there with our family members, like, watch this shit. Everything was through without a hitch. But it wasn't until after the fact that we learned about the plan of devolution, where they're saying, hey, 1/3 of the CCP students who have come over here are actually assets for the CCP. So you're talking about military, industrial, all that shit. We've had Afghans come over here. We've had thousands of people come over underneath the border that are not Mexicans. They found Chinese people and shit coming from underneath the border. We have had different explosives in the country go missing. I've read over a dozen stories about explosives and high-grade material that have just gone missing from military warehouses. I remember reading a story about an Afghanistan group that came over here. It was like 13 or 14 of them, a team of them, and they were like techies. And all of a sudden, they all just disappeared. Nobody could find them. Not to mention the guy who's in right now. He's letting these people in at a massive pace, and it all goes back to him being on the same page as all these people. You got to stop thinking Democrat and Republican. All these people who are involved in this whole web understand that war is the best option, because it gets rid of all the emails, it gets rid of all the laptops. No one's going to be thinking about that kind of shit if we're in collateral damage, if we're in an actual war zone. Nobody's going to give a shit about that. And also, people are going to be looking for they're going to be looking for survival, so they're probably going to be willing to do anything, including go into a camp that may not be in your best interest, because you may not be logically thinking, because your war struck at that point from seeing the shit that you see in the movies that they've prepped us for. So with that being said, you have to also consider the fact that recently it was confirmed, something that 4-5 had said early in his presidency, about Huawei using connections in the military to are using, basically buying land and putting devices on the land that can intercept and pick up very important military information, very, very secret information. I remember reading stories back probably over a decade ago about how Hillary sold our secrets to China as far as our missile shit. And I know for a fact that Russia makes the best missiles. They make these things called surface-to-air missiles, or SAM 400s, and they're actually to the point where they've like developed the 600s, because I listened to Putin talk about this shit and what this shit does. And when you're thinking about a missile defense system, for some reason I'm thinking like a dome, like on some Simpsons type of shit. No, it's not quite like that. It's probably not noticeable. Well, I'm sure it's noticeable, but not only does it intercept the missile, it locks onto where it was shot off at, and it shoots that bitch back at them. Now, we have what are called Patriot missile systems that only shoot forward. And we've been mad at the Saudi Arabians because we were trying to force them to buy our Patriot missile systems. And they were like, I think we're going to go with those ones that spin around, do 360s, 780s and shit like that, and shoot back at you. So they went with Russia's shit. And I just read a story the other day as well about how China and Russia are in the process of creating a new global reserve currency. So, yeah, this shit's gonna. I definitely know it's going down before 2024. I don't believe there's going to be a 2024 election. I felt that way since I figured out what happened during the inauguration. I was like, there's no way, because even if the people believe, like, even if Trump was on some Al Gore shit, he knows he's put too much into it. He's already upset the establishment too much, and he already knows he's woken up so many people to different things, like exposing the Federal Reserve System. That's the most important thing he's done. And I think he knows that He's literally trying to save the country. Believe it or not, he's really trying to save the country. And what was I gonna say? If he was gonna screw everything over, he could just walk away and do it. I don't think I don't think that was in the plans for him to do that. I think this change is happening, and we're thinking of it, or at least I was at one time thinking of it being something that happens really fast. I think it's things that are happening to the country that are peeling back layers um, of getting it raw before we start to go into what we're going to go into. Because believe it or not, these folks could love Trump just like they love Dr. King until Dr. King started talking about reparations in that speech, and then they start calling him a calm, and a dick, you know. So I don't know what words will get me censored. I shouldn't really even damn care because this ain't really. Uh, it's not my job, but it is my job as a humanitarian. If I get some information that I think is pertinent to our fucking survival as well as our damn uh, way of life.